Hi Kay, hello Sharon. It's lovely to see you both here.
Hi
Hello,
everyone.
Tamsin.
How are you two feeling?
Yes, all good, thank you. All good.
I'm
Yeah,
good.
Somebody was speaking to me about DBT.
I would like to know more about it because I know, well, I know someone who's had DBT. I know that you need DBT to deal with certain things. That is the best go-to. I would like to know more about it.
Okay, Kay,
Um,
do you know anything about DBT?
I quite a while ago now, I did some training on DBT, just an online thing. I used to help with the DBT group in rehab because they use it for addiction quite often, like CBT. And so DBT is dialectic behavioral therapy. It's slightly different from CBT. It still is cognitive and trying to reframe things. The thoughts drive the feelings, don't they? And then the feelings drive the behavior, like in a
yeah,
little cycle. So that's CBT.
thought
So
behavior.
the thoughts knock onto the feelings knock onto the behavior. And so I think that's why they use it quite a lot in rehab and with addiction because you want to change the behavior. First of all, you've got to change the thought, and that'll change the way you feel, and then you won't need to do the behavior. And so it works with anxiety and depression and stuff as well. So CBT therapists will say to you, your thinking is incorrect. That's an incorrect way to think, and this is the correct way to think. And if you think in the correct way, you'll feel better
The
about
whole
it. Sorry, go
premise,
on.
the whole premise of that is, as you say, there's something wrong with that thinking. They think those types of thinking are cognitive distortions. So
Yeah.
if people are thinking black and white thoughts, then that's wrong. That's for CBT. If people are thinking overgeneralizations, that's wrong. That's for CBT.
In or someone founded DBT because the whole ethos of DBT is like I can see why you're thinking that, and so they don't say your thinking is incorrect.
Right.
I can see why you're thinking that, but this might be a different way to think, and this might be a better way to think.
Because my feeling about DBT is that it's more of an acceptance. It's more like acceptance therapy.
I must admit, I understood it to be a bit more than, yeah, except this is where you are, but I also thought there was a bit more proactiveness. It is like Kay said, I didn't know they used it for addictions. I'm thinking of BPD,
Oh
but that
yeah,
it
yeah.
is to deal with something. So it's got to be a bit proactive, hasn't it?
To change the behaviour of
Yeah,
someone. Yeah, to say to maybe change dysfunctional behaviour or what we
yeah,
call
yeah,
dysfunctional behaviour. Because when I was learning about it, I was like, that's that's different. If I look at it and I think, oh, that wise mind, it's like TA, the adult, and
yeah,
the emotional mind, that's like the child,
yeah,
and the logical mind, that would be like the parent.
Parent.
yeah,
So then it kind of made more sense to me
yeah.
because I'd already like been using TA for a while.
Most different modalities have got something you can go, oh, well, in TA it's called this, in DBT it's called that, CBT is that.
That's
Um,
so true.
they're not all exactly the same, obviously, but
No.
there's certainly bits.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
the DBT, it's not just about let's try and reframe it. It's like, how does your emotional mind feel about this thing? Whatever it is about. I had an argument with my partner, for instance. This is hypothetical, and then I wanted to go to the pub and have a drink. So that was all from my emotional mind. And so, what would your logical mind say about that? And then the main part, the best part is like the wise mind. What the wise mind is overlapped by the logical and the emotional. So that takes a bit from the logical and a bit from the emotional and then processes those two bits. And how do you feel about that now from your wise mind? So always try and get into your wise mind.
And it's always bringing the inner adult, isn't it? And again, we're back to the terminology. It's
Yeah,
okay. So your inner child's acting up. Your inner parent's nowhere to be seen. So where's your inner adult? Who's going to do the self-soothing? How are you going to emotionally regulate what's happening?
yeah, yeah. So it is that get into your adult. That's your best ego state.
All of that is awareness of what you're doing, isn't it? All comes down to being aware of what's happening for you in the moment.
Exactly. Aware in the moment. That's your adult when you're acting like we're talking adult to adult and we're aware of what we're doing in the moment and our emotions aren't overwhelming us.
I definitely think I'll look into that some more, actually, DBT. Yeah, it's just it's nice to have another tool, something to just to arm you. Yeah.
I think it is good to have the tools, and it's sometimes good to use some of it, especially I used a bit of it this week with a teenager because they do interpersonal skills. So if you haven't
Okay.
got the confidence or the assertiveness, there's like a worksheet for that or an intervention where you can become more assertive and it tells you how to like get your needs met, say what you want from someone clearly, and negotiate if you have to.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because a lot of that underlying that is that fear of conflict, isn't there? So if I speak up, they're going to not like me anymore, and I'm going to it's going to be again, we're back to this ADHD. It's a fear, isn't it? People with ADHD often have that fear that if they say what their needs are, and sometimes they don't even know what their needs are, but if they say what their needs are, the other person's definitely going to reject them.
Definitely. Yeah, that's a lot of that is the ADHD, isn't it? That you they mask all the time, mask what they want or what they need. But that is just tuning out from when they was a child. They've learned to tune out because it wasn't
I
safe. I
Yeah,
do
yeah.
think different approaches fit different people. So sometimes someone will get a person-centered approach, like when you say, well, when your parents put conditions of worth on you, it
Mm,
bends you out of shape and then it models you into something that you're not.
yeah.
And that is where the conflict begins. That's one of my very first clients when I was on placement. I kept saying to him about, I was saying it for weeks. And when your parents put conditions of worth on you, it bends you out of shape and is a conflict inside of you. And he was like, no one's ever put conditions of worth on me. No, my parents didn't put conditions of worth on me. No, school didn't put conditions of worth on me. And he was a teacher, he was quite educated. Then one week, I just thought to myself, I can't say that again. So I'm going to say about a critical parent. And I was telling him about the critical parent, the adult and the child. And he went, oh, yeah, well, my mum was very critical. I didn't say it to
Yeah.
him, but I was like, it's the same thing. Conditions of worth and
Yeah.
critical, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
it's a lot of it is terminology and
Yeah.
understanding what a counsellor means when they say this. What does it mean? And what does it mean to the client when they're hearing you say that? That's the first time they've heard it or they don't know it.
And clients might not want to say, well, like, what do you mean by conditions of worth?
I don't know what you mean.
Client might not want to say because sometimes well, I know when I'm studying certain modalities or approaches, I think, say that again in English, and I don't get it.
So I think we probably have got a danger of using jargon and using terminology.
Yeah.
But then equally, you don't want to go too far the other way where you assume that the client doesn't know a lot of this stuff because now a lot of clients do know a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, clients do know a lot of stuff and they do research it as well.
Yeah.
What route would you take to overcome that?
If you're like Kay is a specialist in addiction, it is about changing a behavior. with me, the clients I see, almost it's like I'm accepting I'm okay as I am. And actually, I don't need to change. So I don't, from my point of view, I suppose humanistic is all the way rather than. So if I want to know more about DBT, it is a back pocket thing. It's a tool just in case, because I really think in the majority of cases that we are all different and that is okay. If you accept who you are, you start to believe in yourself more, which makes it easier to express your needs and wants more. So I suppose you are changing in that you are becoming more outspoken, more confident, setting your boundaries, but it's starting with believing in who you are.
So there's definitely change there, isn't there? So even though we say, oh, it's not change,
Yeah.
it really is.
All counselling is about change.
Yeah.
That's why people come to counselling, because they want to change something. They might want to change different things,
Yeah.
but they do want to change. Something needs to change.
And sometimes, even if that is acceptance, like acceptance therapy, accepting whatever it is that's upsetting them, that will lead to change because it will change how they feel about whatever it is.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. I do actually 100% agree. You don't go to counselling unless you want to change something. I guess I meant some things are obvious change. I need to give up alcohol. I need to overcome this anxiety thing.
Changing the behaviour or changing the feelings. I believe it's all about changing the feelings. Even to change the behaviour, you need to change the feelings first.
I need to change the thoughts. Then we're
And the
back to the
thought,
thought
but
process.
yeah, the thoughts kind of get in the way, but mainly it is about validating the feelings, isn't it? Addiction is about changing the way you feel. The behavior changes the way you feel. If you ask why they do it, why do you drink then? Or why do you take drugs? Or why do you gamble? It's because it changes the way I feel. That's always the answer. You can change the way you feel by changing the thoughts, but other things as well. I think I'm person centered because you need that to build the relationship. And then psychodynamic, whatever the reason is, whatever the dysfunctional behavior or the feeling is, I believe it comes from the childhood. Even like couples therapy, whatever it is, it's all back to the childhood for me. And then CBT and DBT and stuff to just hook you out of a hole. Sometimes you're so lost in the addiction or the depression or anxiety that you need something to get you out of it, like bring you up to a level where you can actually think about, well, how do I feel? Or what do I want to feel?
Because if you're trying to improve how you feel about yourself, you have to change your inner dialogue. There's no good just walking around thinking, well, I'm going to feel better soon, because you could just be telling yourself terrible things all day long and you're not going to change how you feel about yourself. And then you're not going to improve, and then you're not going to have confidence, and then you're not going to overcome a fear of conflict because you haven't built up that resilience or self-confidence to be able to approach those situations.
Yeah, I agree with that, Tamsin. I just think that inner critic that keeps on like bashing the person up. Usually for me, it comes from the critical parent. There's usually some kind of critical parent in there. And even when there's like, oh, both my parents are nurturing, they was ideal. There's a bully at school, or there's a teacher, or something that has led you to believe that you're messy and you're like no good and you can't like fit in. And especially with ADHD, that is always the case, that there's that dialogue from childhood that we begin to believe.
So how would you go about changing that?
I'd work with the scripts, like the life script of someone, talk about the parent, adult, child, the pack model. I'd listen to what they say, and sometimes they do a lot of shoulds and musts, or I should do that, or yeah, I had to do this, or and then I feed that back. I go, you know, when you said you should be doing or you must be doing,
So
kind
you
of
soften it up. You
soften
soften it
it
up.
up a little bit. I do a lot of inner child work where like strengthening the adult, bringing the adult in. What did you need when you was a child and your parents were drunk and they were fighting? What did you need at that point? Get them there, get them in the room with the parents fighting.
First step well, for you is to make them aware of what they're thinking that's negative. But
Yeah,
then it's the change. How do they go about changing that? Because for me, there's sort of a few ways of doing that. There's the idea of mind blocking, which obviously sometimes doesn't work. They I reject that thought if you want to change your thinking. And then it comes back round stronger. But sometimes some people find that really works, just saying I reject that thought, particularly if it's a very specific thought that they keep thinking, like I must work harder, or I'm just so lazy, or I'm just useless, or I'm no good, or whatever the thought is. And then the other way of thinking it is to rationalize it and just to think, okay, it's just a thought I keep thinking. I'm just going to let it go past. I'm just going to notice the thought and I'm going to let it go. Remember, I'm not my thoughts.
that's really good if you can let the thought go. I think a lot of people, especially addicts, they seem to hold on to the thought. So if you make them aware of where it's coming from, that's not you thinking that about yourself. You've been fed this script all your life and it's ingrained now that you think you're thinking these thoughts that keep criticizing you, but actually you're not. So to change the word should to could, so I get them to say every time you think I should do, well, I could do it, but I don't have to. And they, whatever they say, like take me away, like get rid of my dad, get the police. Some people say get the police. Yeah, all sorts of things. But then their adult is making that choice to protect the child. Then ask them, bring their adult in. So your adult's in here with us, and what would you say? What would your inner child say, that 10-year-old you, if your adult said, what do you need me to do to help? And then if you keep working like that, the adult gets stronger and is just going to protect the child the whole time, hopefully.
Yeah, this is it. It's all you can do. It's very difficult because you can't measure the progress, can you? And you can't see from the outside the progress that's being made until the person says, well, I felt so much better this week.
I'm going to say you can't measure it, no, but you almost can tell by the behavior of your clients. And you talking about, yeah, mine comes back to what I said a minute ago. Accepting yourself first brings about that change. It, in my experience, when a person fights it, and whether it I mustn't think like that, and they panic, and then it starts and a panic attack begins and the heart's racing, can't breathe, all because they're trying to not be who they are. To me, the people that I've worked with, when they learn to accept who they are, then those things go. But I think it certainly depends on the problem you're dealing with as well, as to how you deal with the things. Yeah. I have got a few neurodiverse clients.
Mhm.
So, and it has been a lot of oh, I don't fit in, I'm not accepted the way I am. So actually it's about saying to them and making someone realize actually I am okay the way I am. And it's only by pretending to be someone else that actually I'm being not seen for who I am and therefore undermined. So yeah, I guess I've got a few neurodiverse. I've got some that are just stressed with life. I've got a couple that have had, like myself, a life-changing illness, someone who developed or was late diagnosed with MS. I've had chronic fatigue, like myself, stroke survivors. So it's just about accepting rather than changing. Does that make sense?
It does. But if you've got a fear of conflict or a fear of speaking up and having your needs met,
Yeah.
how do you change that without changing? Because
I,
obviously you have to change
yeah.
something if you're going to learn to be more confident. So as well, clients bring new modalities. They say, "What have you heard about EMDR? What do you think about that?" And you're like, "Oh yeah. I've heard of it. I've had EMDR actually. Have either of you two had EMDR?"
No.
It's really interesting because the therapist sits with you, they ask you loads of questions, obviously to check out what it is that you want, what you're there for. And then sometimes they get a little machine and there's a light that go across like laser lights and your eyes follow the lights. So your eyes are doing this. Or they hold their fingers and you follow their hands and then a bit like an optician. And then while you do that rapidly with your eyes, you go into this sort of like semi-trance like state. It's a weird sort of state, like when you're in the middle of a session and halfway through, you get that sort of flow state where the person's really going deep into what they're feeling and what they think. It's like that. It's like, right, let's do this thing. And you're going to get into that state. So then you get into that state and then you talk about something that happened from your past and you bring it all up and the feelings come up and then you release the trauma and then you go out. That's the experience that I had of it. But some people do it over and over again and they go for sort of 6 weeks or 8 weeks. But I didn't feel a need to want to do that again. But it's an interesting experience.
To be honest, one of my supervisors, I did it with them because we were talking about EMDR, trauma, etc. So he did it on me for about, I don't know, 10 or 20 minutes.
Okay.
And we spoke about being scared of mice for a thing to, because I am scared of mice. I don't think
Right.
I'm as bad now.
Isn't it weird?
And I only had it for a very short amount of time. We didn't like go into it properly, but he just wanted to show me what it was like.
What it felt like.
Yeah, yeah.
So would you do it again?
I might do it. Yeah.
It's
Yeah, I
interesting.
might do it for kind of trauma, really. Childhood trauma. I think it's very good for that. It doesn't always work. To be honest, people do say it doesn't, they've had EMDR, and whether they're not ready for it at that time or why, I don't know.
I think it depends a lot on the practitioner, the person doing it. A bit like hypnotherapy, or therapy. If you get with a person that you're not gelling with, or you don't understand,
Yeah.
or you're
Yeah.
not on the same wavelength.
Yeah. I was in agreement. It's not even the practitioner on their own, it's the practitioner and that client. They either gel or they don't. And like you say, hypnotherapy works for some, not others. But maybe with a different practitioner, it would work.
Definitely. I've had hypnotherapy. Have you had hypnotherapy?
I have had hypnotherapy for dieting, and I did lose loads of weight. A couple of stone. Right at the end of lockdown, I maintained it all the way through because I think it was before lockdown that I had it, and I did lose 2 stone. And then right at the end of lockdown, I just lost it. I just lost it. And I do think hypnotherapy wears off, but I think I could get it back. It was actually really weird. He was this weird little man who did some hypnotherapy on me and did this whole operation. There was the nurse, the anaesthetist, the consultant, and they did like when people have their stomach made smaller, stapled.
Yeah.
He did that in
Wow.
this in the hypnosis. Not
Oh,
obviously not real.
Yeah, so it was like a psychic sort of operation. It was like a psychic surgeon's work.
Yeah, yeah, but I mean, it
oh,
took like 2 hours. It was a one-off thing. You only have it one time because you had to eat from a little plate and have half the portion because obviously you've got a smaller stomach. Drink a pint of water before your meal and then eat from a little plate, and it did
Wow,
work.
that's
Yeah,
oh,
incredible. Whereabouts is he, this guy?
I mean, I think he lives in Spain. He's on Facebook, Eddie Malloy.
Because I've been to hypnotherapy. I had one session about fear of the dentist, and
Oh,
I used to be so upset before the dentist. I used to really stress the night before. I'd be off my food the day before because I know that I'd be scared the next day. And I went to this hypnotherapist, and her name was the same name as the dentist, and I took that as a sign that she was going to be a
oh,
good person. And I
oh.
went and sat in her summer house at the end of a beautiful garden in South Church, and I had one session, and I managed to get myself to the dentist without any fear at all for about 2 years after that. Yeah, and then
oh.
it did, as you say, it wears off. But I know that I could put myself back into that state, that headspace that I was in after I went to hypnotherapy. So I know it's there now. I know it's
Yeah,
available.
I think it's there in your brain. You just need to access it. So if you like really hype yourself up and motivate yourself, I'm gonna just drink my water, have a small plate. I'm
Mm.
not gonna eat. There was something he did about chocolate that you just didn't want it. In fact, people at work were giving me cake. They were like passing cakes around, and I'd take one and I'd go, oh, actually, I don't really want that. And I'd put it back.
That's
Because
incredible,
I
isn't it?
just took it because you do, don't you? If it's like everyone's having a cake, it's
Mm.
like, oh, okay, I don't really want to eat it now. And yeah,
That's
yeah,
brilliant, isn't it? I mean, everyone knows that this is the thing. You just eat less, exercise more, and the
yeah,
weight comes off. Right? And the
yeah,
words are so easy to say.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Why is it so hard? Yeah. Have you had as extra training in it, or was it part of your foundation, or what?
I've done some training in it, a couple of training courses. We did TA on my level 5 for a couple of weeks. We did lots of different modalities. So we had a different teacher every time we changed the modality. But a lot of my personal therapy was inner child TA. And I think that was like my best lot of therapy that I had, really. Yeah.
Isn't that interesting? It's again, it's on the client, isn't it? The client can identify, oh yeah, parent, adult, child, and it grabs them, and they can understand and identify with it, and they engage with it. And yet another client might really identify with CBT. Oh yeah, that's it
Yeah.
for me. And someone else might identify with person-centered. For me, when I've had therapists, when I think about therapists I've had in the past, and as you know, when you have training, you go through therapy, don't you? You go through it, and for hours and
Yeah.
hours. And I can remember the very first therapist I had, she was about 80, and she was so good. She was purely person centered because she knew I was a student. She was just showing me. And the power of that, the power of having it fed back to you, what you've just said. And you sometimes you think, did I really just say that? Oh my God, it sounds terrible when someone else says that. I'm talking about myself, and I'm talking in such unfavourable terms. But you don't hear yourself say, until somebody actually says it back to you, can be very powerful. But the TA is so interesting, isn't it? The TA, a lot of people can identify with that adult, parent, child and their internal makeup.
I think a lot of people just the language of it and the approach of it, like I was saying, my first client, like unconditional regard, blah blah blah, went on for that like that for weeks. And then I mentioned critical parent. It was like, oh yeah, yeah. So it
Yeah.
clicked, and you can see the light bulb come on.
Yeah, I really like transactional analysis, but even that has got some jargon, like life script.
Yeah,
You know, what? But yeah, I know that's part of it. I did a little bit of extra training in that for a few months, and um, some of it is jargonated, for want of a better expression, because the breakdown of TA. is so straightforward and simple.
You want to be adult and adult. You want to
Yeah,
be adult and adult. You don't want to be parent
That's
and
good.
child,
And parent and child is okay sometimes.
as long as it's not the critical
Yeah,
parent and the child
yeah.
that hasn't been nurtured.
if
Yeah.
the critical parent, if the boss goes to you, well, come to my office at 5 o'clock, I need to talk to you. How do you feel about that?
Yeah,
Exactly. If you're in your inner child, if your inner child comes out and your inner child wants to run off or is
yeah,
crying or scared or
yeah.
anxious or can't speak or shuts down, where's the
Yeah,
adult gone?
I would be terrified if my boss said that, or if I had a boss and they said that to me. I'd like feel sure that I would be getting the
You're
sack
going to
or
get
something.
fired. Of course, you're going to get
Yeah,
fired. You'd be on your CV before
yeah,
5 o'clock,
yeah,
getting ready for the next job.
yeah, yeah, definitely. So that would push me straight into adapted child, scared and withdrawn and nervous.
And it's being aware of when that's happening. Once you learn these states, it's really helpful to recognize, oh, hold on, I'm doing that thing again. Where's my inner
Yeah.
adult? Let me go into the
Yes,
bathroom. I'm going to splash some water on my face. I'm going to take some deep breaths. I'm going to walk around the block. I'm going to bring my inner adult back in charge.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, words are easy for me to say. Obviously, some people are struck down for 2 hours lying in a darkened room and they have to go home early and they have a migraine for 3 days. And we're all different, aren't we? How it affects us physically.
I think if you, like you say, if you identify it, if you can think, well, I always think if I'm crying or if I'm scared or on the verge of tears, that's my child. I'm in my child. You always know the child they're crying. And then if I'm cracking the whip, like you
Yeah.
should have been working more, you should have seen that client when they wanted to see you or whatever it is, you should you should be able to do all your work and all your housework and all your shopping and do it all and like be superwoman. That's your critical, your shoulds and the musts. If you hear yourself thinking, should
Yeah.
do that, must do this, then it's the critical parent.
Yeah.
Where do we think the negligent parent comes into that?
Negligent parent.
Parent, yeah, if you've got alcoholic parents, so you've got negligent parents. So
Oh,
the
okay.
story you've got in there is, oh, I don't have to worry about anything. I don't, what, someone else can
Oh,
do that.
so they're not exactly
They're the
nurturing,
opposite. They're negligent. Yeah, if you've got negligent parents,
then but they're not nurturing you.
no, it's the opposite. Yeah,
But they're not critical. But
no,
I feel like they are critical quite often. If they're an alcoholic parent, they'll be
have
criticizing
outbursts.
you
Yeah.
like, oh, stop making so much noise. Why are you crying? Why can't you go to sleep? Oh, you're such a terrible child. Like,
Mm.
'cause they're not going to want to feel it themselves. They're going to flip it all onto the child.
Do you think a child, sorry, Sharon, do you think a child that's got alcoholic parents that are negligent then picks up a critical voice from other people's parents or teachers or lollipop ladies or anywhere where there is sort of an authority figure that can then tell them what to do? Do you think the child then picks that up from somewhere else?
Yeah, yeah, I do.
It says parent, critical parent, nurturing parent, but it's not. It's a nurturing or critical carer. So
Yeah.
that or the person, it could be your school teacher, it could be your older sibling or younger. So, but I think Kay's right. There'd be a lot of critical anyway. But if they weren't there, I think they would be replaced mentally with another.
Another critical voice. I'll tell you why I think of that because when I was younger, a little bit of self-disclosure, I can remember my mum being like a hippie type mum and very, very hands off. And you're not. She brought me up listening to her read me astrology books at bedtime. She was there on the cutting edge of right. We're going to imagine colours. Colours are healing and all this. So there were barely any boundaries. It was just get on with your life. And then I can remember going around to see my friend's mum, who was a school teacher, and she was the opposite. And she read one of my stories that I'd written for school. And she said to me, she laughed, she said, oh, that's terrible. You're never going to make a writer. And she just laughed and she handed me back this story that I'd written because I'd used the word ain't. So I'd put the grammar like an Essex working class common. This is how we speak. And so I'd done it exactly how I'd learnt and what I'd heard. And she told me it was terrible. You're never going to make a writer, right? And laughed, but it was funny. and that sort of voice stuck in my head. So whenever I catch myself thinking something that I've heard years ago that's critical about me, I struggle to think that it's from my mum. But I think, is it really from my friend's mum that I spent more time with after school every day than I did with my own mum? It's quite possible.
Yeah, so it isn't necessarily from your mum.
You make the critical voice, the critical parent comes from a different voice.
It can come from anywhere, and then if you like have it from your parents, you probably notice it more from others as well. How good is it that you've written a book?
I know, it's fun,
After,
isn't it? I should send her one. She might not still be alive, but yeah, I should send her a
Yeah.
copy.
yeah,
But it
yeah,
did put me off for years. I thought, oh, yes, she's right. 'Cause you believe it. You live it, don't you? You believe it. If someone
yeah.
tells you you're not creative or you can't make something, you go off and live it.
Well, absolutely. It's sad, but it goes back to whether you call it conditions of worth, the critical parent, whatever. These seeds are sown and they stay with us if we're that sort of person. Sometimes we lucky, I guess, for whatever reason, maybe someone else reads that and thinks, oh, that's great because you said it exactly like it's spoken in Essex.
Yeah.
So perception, isn't it? But,
Yeah. And it is having that ability or awareness. Hold on a minute, I'm just going to leave that with that person. But when you're a child and it's an adult authority figure, as a teacher saying it, it holds power and influence. And
Goes
if
in.
you haven't got that information, hold on a minute, you've got to check who it is that's saying this and why they're saying it before you just naturally absorb it as truth.
absolutely.
When I was training, and I didn't realize this until I was training, I was quite a lot older, probably 47 when I started training. So when we did the Johari window, I was like, oh, you can actually reject feedback then. I, I was like, that was a revelation. I don't have to take it on everything everyone thinks about me. I can
Oh,
choose what I want and what I don't want. And if I feel like it's true, then I've got to admit it. But then if I feel like that's not me, I can say that's not how I am. And I thought, yeah,
that's so powerful, isn't it? Learning that. If that's the first time you've come across the idea that you can leave it with the other person and you don't have to accept it, not automatically. It's the automatic acceptance, isn't it? You are allowed to explore what's happened here. Trouble is that happens so fast, and then you're upset and living out this pain of, oh my God, somebody said I'm tight. What are you talking about? And you're giving all your money away before you know it because somebody's criticised you for not being generous enough or whatever it is.
yeah. Yeah, as a child though, you don't know, do you? Well, obviously I didn't know till a lot older either. As a child, you just take it on board and that's what shapes you.
I can remember being 5 and a girl sitting next to me at school, a little boy had asked her out. And I said, oh, you're going out with him then? Because he'd asked her out. And she said, oh, no, I want to know where he's going to take me. I was like, I couldn't believe it. What do you mean? You're going to question? You're being asked out by a little boy. Why wouldn't you just go? And that was my first experience of somebody pushing back against someone wanting to do something and the other person being able to put up their boundaries. I can remember being really shocked by that at the time.
That's interesting, isn't it? So at 5 years old, you just felt you had to comply with whatever.
If someone wanted to go out of your make you go and pick up the milk and be the milk monitor, or if you had to go and clean the quadrangle of Lee's, or if you had to do the after school classes, I just went along and did whatever it was that said, this is what you're doing. Didn't even occur to me until I heard this little girl say, sorry, where do you think we're going?
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And can you remember the first time you recognised even that boundaries existed?
All I remember is not being strong enough to fight back. I remember, yeah, being controlled, if you like, not by parents, by peers. So at school, people, not knowing more even, because in fairness, I was quite clever, but perhaps more streetwise, perhaps, yeah, just for want of a better expression, a bit tougher.
A bit bossy, a bit controlling, a bit more in charge, a bit more
Yeah,
decision making and telling you what to do. And you
yeah,
were just more going along with it
yeah.
because you didn't know any different, or because, and here's the deeper thing, it's that fear of not being included or fear of rejection by the group, possibly, if you didn't go along with it.
A bit of that, but I always had friends, but there were always one or two people all the way through school that I remember being scared of, and different people. And even now, I'm like rubbish at making decisions. But now it won't be for fear. It will be, I'll choose not to be with people like that. But now, so my way is to let someone else lead anyway. But then it was like, oh, well, you're a bit scary. You might hit me or say something really mean or, yeah.
Yeah, just scared of physical pain and also scared of emotional pain.
Mm,
Yeah,
yeah. Don't know why, but yeah.
yeah. Something I was thinking something when you said that. Come back to me in a minute. Is something about the feeling of if you don't make decisions for your life, somebody else usually does.
That's so true.
If you're not sort of plotting your path, someone else has got a plan and then they reel you in. Before you know it, you're doing someone else's hard work. You're doing support for someone else, and you're any idea you had of what you were going to do is boom.
Yeah, that is so true. And you can even look at around you now and see people whose lives aren't their own because they've allowed, if you like, other people to control, not even necessarily meant to be in a bad way, but taken over, and that person hasn't put in the boundaries and said, well, no, actually, I'd rather do this.
Yeah, because it's automatic behaviour, isn't it? Just to go along with things for an easy life, or because, oh, this is what I've always done, so I'm just going along with it. Next thing you know, you're paying for 6 people to have dinner. What happened there
Yeah,
then, right? But this is how you find yourself in positions or weddings or funerals you didn't want to go to, or giving people lifts places or whatever. You're finding yourself doing things because you haven't stopped to think, hold on, this person hasn't actually asked me if I want to do that thing. What's going on?
yeah, so true.
So
That
it's a lack of direction, isn't it? Do you think it's a lack of direction from the beginning or being compliant?
Or even being aware that you are allowed to make choices and that you are allowed to have your own autonomy in your life and that there's got a goal and you are allowed to achieve things. It's back to that, like you just be background fodder for someone else's stardom in their life. You're not the main person in your life. You're support for everyone else.
yeah, I don't know where mine came from. I really don't. I have, well, obviously you reflect, don't you, when you're training in your therapy. And I really don't know where mine came from. I was brought up quite religious, but I don't, not in a bad way, not for me. Whether I remember perhaps not seeing eye to eye with people that didn't agree with the way I was brought up, so they might be a bit mean. Maybe that's where it came from. So you can either carry on like that through life, or for some reason, when I left school, I chose. I mentally remember choosing to be different, choosing a different path.
So you chose your autonomy. You recognised that you had a choice.
Probably the first time I was able, because when you're at school, to try and put in those boundaries when they haven't been there before, it's blooming hard. And when you're like a teenager, it's nigh on impossible. But then you leave school, and in theory, you're starting to feel no one else knows you.
So you get a fresh start. You get to
Yeah,
start again. You're surrounded by people who hopefully have got a bit of respect for you and don't behave
yeah,
like teenagers.
yeah, yeah. And you can reinvent.
Yeah, and
Mm.
you can grow and blossom, and you need
Mm.
space to be able to have that personal growth, don't you?
I know I was lucky at school in some ways. Like I always have had good friends, and a couple of my good friends I've been friends with since we were 11. They've always been there. So that's good. And yeah, when I met my first husband, I had two. Um, yeah, it was fun. It was my choice. So
It
it
was
was
your choice. You remember choosing him.
100%. Yeah. Mm.
That's
Mm.
interesting. Isn't that lovely? Because that ability to be able to choose another person in your life, that's the biggest form of self-acceptance and recognizing this is what I want to do that you can
Yeah.
have, isn't it? Choosing who you're going to have in your life.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. Wouldn't have thought of that, but true. Very true. Mm.
Choosing your career and choosing your job, all those things, all those choices, they're very powerful, aren't they?
Yeah.
They
It's
are, aren't they?
It's okay to, so you were 47 when you started recognizing boundaries and recognizing,
Yeah.
hold on a minute, these people dishing out this stuff at me, I don't need to listen. What do you mean?
Until then, I think that I used to just have these kind of arguments. I'd get angry and then nothing would change. I'd just get angry that no one would listen to me and nothing would change really. So people just didn't listen to me even more because I was angry and I was a bit shouty. At school, I was fine. I had my friends. I still have got a couple of friends from school even now, that we've been friends all that time. So I think I was just like fun, really. I was just having fun at school because I didn't have any boundaries, but I didn't think anyone else had any boundaries either. So at school, I did get into trouble at school. I do think that's a bit ADHD-ish though, that I couldn't focus. So I just used to mess around like and have fun and put eyeliner on at the back of the class and stuff. I purposely didn't do any work. So and I thought my friend didn't do any, but apparently now she's showed me her homework. Yeah, I did do my work and I did my homework. And I was like, oh, I thought you was a rebel like me. I was a bit disappointed in that. But anyway, we got through school, but that was how it was for a long time for me. I would try and have a boundary, but then I couldn't make the boundary and it would end up in an argument and then I would lose because I was shouting and not making sense.
Yeah, it's also recognizing that if you haven't been taught about boundaries, you are going to try and instill a boundary from the other person accepting what you're saying. So you've got a need to be understood by the other person. That's your boundary. Okay, I don't want to do this thing, but the other person's got to tell me I'm not going to do this thing. So they've got to agree with me. So it's having that confusion, isn't it? Of knowing, hold on, no, you've got to understand what I'm saying. Otherwise, because you don't know that, hold on, no, that's just enough. All you have to do is say you don't want to go to the
Oh,
thing that you don't want to go
yeah,
to. That's it. No is a complete sentence. Just sorry,
yeah,
no, that's
I
it.
didn't
But
realise
you,
that.
you thought the other person had to understand.
I thought I was trying to get the other person to understand why I was
Yeah,
saying no or
yeah, and you
whatever
don't.
it was.
Or worse, the other person's got to give you permission and allow you to make your
Yeah,
decision that you've just said because
yeah.
you just saying it isn't enough. You need
Yeah, because I
external
didn't, my
validation.
word was not good
Not
enough. So
good enough.
I had to get them to, yeah, to
Validate what you were saying.
validate it.
Yeah,
But I never really got validated.
no.
So it's quite funny now. One of my friends says to me, "You're like you're like this really sweet little person, and then when you have like a boundary and you don't want to do something, you're like, it's like a fist of iron. You go, no, that's not it. I'm not doing it. So,
Uh,
because I'm purposely doing that as well, I'm like, oh yeah, I don't want to do that. So I have to like, no, that's not me. I'm not going. Yeah.
Yeah, and unfortunately, some people you do have to be that firm with because otherwise they don't listen, or you're scared they're not going to listen. So you have to, it's like using a sledgehammer to crack a nut, isn't it? You have to just let
Exactly.
them know. So, no,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So I'm very clear now, but
but
mm,
it was a long journey to learn it,
it
wasn't
is
it?
a long journey. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, nowadays, kids at school learn it, hopefully. Most of them are learning it somewhere.
Mm,
Hopefully they do. Yeah.
hopefully.
Yeah.
Hopefully, they're having lessons in it.
Boundaries. I don't think we ever had
No,
lessons in
we never had
boundaries.
lessons in personal relationships. We never had anything.
No, no.
Now they have lessons in relationships and abuse, and they learn about domestic violence, and they learn about all sorts, don't they?
Yeah.
But does that include protecting yourself and safeguarding yourself from your friends? A lot of it includes safeguarding from your enemies and obvious apparent enemies. But what happens when you like the people? You know,
Well, my enemies, like if anyone did want to fight, I could fight them. I would just,
and have a row. Go out and have a row on the playground. I can remember having a row with someone, but I was sticking up for someone else. So that's my justification for that.
in
So I'm
yeah, in infant school, in primary school, it must have been quite a rough area. I used to come out of school and there'd be my brother in the middle of this fight, and then they'd all run off and go, his sister's coming, quick, run. So
you were going to protect him.
I
He was scared
did.
of you.
Yeah,
Mm.
he was a bit older than me, only 11 months. He was only 11 months older. Yeah.
As we come to the end of the session now, thank you ever so much for being here again. We'll try it all again in a few weeks. And if anyone would like to contact Sharon or Kay or myself, Thomasine, all the links are in the description below. Take care. Bye for now. Bye.
Bye.